Hello and welcome to another video here at the Instant Hockey channel. In today's video we're going to be discussing the Arizona Coyotes and what's the next steps after the Tempe referendum did not go anywhere. We'll get to all of that coming up right now. Hello and welcome to another video here at the Instant Hockey channel. Now I'm going to do a quick video here discussing what happened with the Tempe vote and what's next for the Arizona Coyotes. Now, we know that for a long time, the Arizona Coyotes have been looking to build a new arena in Tempe. And it was supposed to be a good, huge arena that was supposed to help this team remain in Arizona. They were looking to keep this team as a clause in Tempe for the next 30 years. They were hoping that everything would go smoothly. The city council said that they would push this to a public referendum, which was basically just the public voting yes or no. Do they want to go forward with these stuff? There's two different things that people voted on. One of them was for the Coyotes to build their arena and entertainment center in Tempe. And what happened on Tuesday was surprising, as the people in Tempe said no, they do not want to have the Arizona Coyotes to build the Tempe arena. They voted no. There was 56% to 44% no to yes. So it was quite surprising. It was a really big gap, and the Tempe voters just said no. They do not want an arena in Tempe. So quite surprising. A lot of people thought this would go through and they would be able to continue to push and have shovels in the ground soon, and they were not able to do so. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next for Arizona. So right after the ballots were counted and the Tempe was ruled as a no, both the Arizona CEO and the NHL came out and said that they were very disappointed that the Tempe voters decided to vote no. They thanked all of the supporters who voted yes, and that was basically it. There was no talk about we'll go to our next option. There was no talk about we'll definitely have this team in Arizona. It was just blank silence. It was just disappointment all around for not getting that Tempe vote and not going through with the NHL arena. So now yesterday they did seem a little bit more confident that they were able to keep that team in Arizona. I know that Arizona's owner said that he was going to try and keep his team in Arizona. Then Bill Daly said that he would expect that Arizona remains at ASU for next year, and they continue to try and find options in Arizona to keep that team in Arizona. So that's another possibility. But if you look at all of these options, there's not really much left for the Coyotes in Arizona. If you look at this, there's a couple of options that I've been hearing about that are possible. One would be that the Arizona Coyotes try sell their team to the new Phoenix Suns owner, who just bought the Phoenix Suns a couple of years ago, and try and renovate the Phoenix Suns arena to become the new home of the Arizona Coyotes. That arena is a basketball arena, not a hockey arena. So they would have to definitely do some renovating. It would definitely take a couple of years. But some more problems with that. First, it's not a hockey arena, so they'd have to do some building and stuff. Secondly, since the 94-95 lockout, the NHL has wanted the NHL teams to own the building that they play in. So if they were to go to the Phoenix Suns arena, that they would be an NHL tenant in there. So it would not be a great option for the Arizona Coyotes. And I know the NHL probably would not want that. And on top of that, we don't even know if the new Phoenix Suns owner will be willing to take the Arizona Coyotes and put them in the Suns building. So we don't know any of that. So even though it's a possibility, it looks like a real long shot. There's some talk that I've seen about them possibly moving to another part of Arizona, trying to develop a different piece of land other than the land they had in Tempe before it was voted no. But then again, that's going to take a couple of months, maybe a couple of years, to get all of the stuff worked out, to get shovels in the ground, to rebuild the arena. It would still be a couple of years' time. And do the NHL really want to have the Arizona Coyotes, who are playing at ASU right now, which is the college arena in Arizona, playing in a 4,000 to 5,000 arena for the next 4 or 5 years? I don't think it's something that they would want to do. So given that fact, I do not expect the Arizona Coyotes to remain in Arizona. I definitely feel for Arizona Coyotes fans, all the hardcore Coyotes fans, definitely if their team is going to leave, definitely a lot of those people are going to be devastated. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see. But the way it looks right now, Tempe voted no, so that Tempe arena is not going to be built. They have the Suns arena as a possibility, but we don't even know if the Suns owner will be willing to do that. And we know the NHL does not want to be a tenant in a place. They want to own their own building. And if they were to try and find another place where they can build a building like they were trying to do with Tempe, it will be extremely difficult because it would take, once again, a couple more years' time. And we got to this point in Tempe after a couple of years' time. So it would take a very long time to get back to where they were with Tempe. So what sort of options do they have moving forward if they're not remaining in Arizona? Well, there's a couple of options in my opinion. So since they've been announced that the Tempe vote was no, I've seen a ton of people say they should relocate, and I think that is probably the most likely. But I've seen some crazy places where people have said they should relocate. So I know that a lot of people say that they should relocate to Quebec City. Everyone says Quebec City is a prime option for relocation, and they should definitely do so. I've also heard some people say Atlanta should be a landing spot. I've heard some people say Halifax at some points as well. In my opinion, they're not going to be moving out east. Detroit and Columbus put up a fight to try and move to the Eastern Conference. They're not going to be happy if the NHL wants to put them back in the Western Conference to move Arizona to an Eastern city. So, in my opinion, as much as I would love to see the Quebec Nordiques back, as much as I would love to see another team in Atlanta, as much as it would be fun to see a team in Halifax, they're not moving east. So all three of those cities that I've seen mentioned, just by people on Twitter, I do not think that those three are going to be options for possible relocations. I do not think that Arizona will be moving out east. Same sort of thing with the West. I think they're going to try and keep it central. So some cities that I've seen, Portland or Sacramento. Sacramento, just given the fact that the Sacramento Kings owner was interested in buying the Ottawa Senators. He never put in a bid, but there was a lot of talk that he wants to bring an NHL team to Sacramento. So that's another possibility, but that's another California team. Not sure if the NHL would really want to put a fourth team in California. Portland would be a really good spot, but once again, more of a Pacific Division team. So if they were to move them in the Pacific, they would have to move someone to the Central, which I don't think would be an overly popular opinion. So once again, I don't think Portland or Sacramento would be a possible landing spots. And while I do see the possibility of them moving to a place like a Wisconsin, Milwaukee, or OKC, or maybe even Saskatoon, who are other teams that I've heard might have interest in trying to acquire a team to bring to those cities, I just don't see those guys as having too much options right now, and I don't expect those four cities, Saskatoon, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, or OKC, to be really considered as legit options at this point in time. But I do think there are three solid options right now for the Arizona Coyotes to expand to that would really make sense. First would be KC. Kansas City has a NHL level arena, the T-Mobile Center. That can host an NHL arena as early as this year. They also could have maybe some owners that could be willing to try and bring that team to KC. They would instantly make a rivalry with the St. Louis Blues. It would be a lot better fit in the Central Division. And I think that would be a huge option. Even yesterday when there was a lot of talk about relocating the team, I saw Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes say it would be really nice to see that KC get a team from Arizona. So, in my opinion, there would be definitely some opportunity in KC to relocate the Coyotes there. If you look at Houston, that's probably the most likely scenario. You've got a really big U.S. market in Houston, which would be a really big fit and a really big win for the NHL. You have an instant rivalry with the Dallas Stars. They're much better fit in the Central Division, and I think that would be a really good option. They have an owner who they've stated before that they want to bring a hockey team to Houston. They've also said that they have an NHL arena in the Toyota Center, which would be able to host a pretty decent NHL arena. They may need to make a couple of changes, but for the most part, I think Toyota Center would be a really good home for an NHL team, and it's a place that the NHL has been wanting to go for a couple of years now. So, in my opinion, Houston's probably another option that Arizona Coyotes could possibly be moved to. And you also got Utah. There was a couple of months ago that it was discussed that Gary Bettman sat down with the Utah Jazz owner Ryan Smith, and there was some talk that Ryan Smith wanted to become an owner of an NHL team, wanted to bring a team to Utah. Now, Utah doesn't have the best of NHL arenas. I know a lot of people have said, why would they be heavy favorites if they don't have an NHL arena? Well, they have an arena right now, the Vivint Arena, which has the 14,000 max, if I'm correct, for seating. So it would not be a really great arena. But there's a lot of talk that with Utah possibly being the home spot of the 2030 Olympics, that sometime in the next couple of years they will build a new arena that could house an NHL team a lot better and will be a lot more modern. So in my opinion, they could move to like Vivint Arena for a couple of years' time while they have that new arena built, and then they can move into that new arena in a couple of years' time. And it will be a lot better for the NHL to move into a really good new NHL arena in a couple of years' time. So Utah is definitely another option. They would be, once again, probably a little bit more better situated in the Central than Arizona. They would make instant rivalries with guys like the Vegas Golden Knights and the Colorado Avalanche. And while I don't have a really good NHL arena at this point in time, eventually they should definitely have a good NHL arena. So in my eyes, it's either Utah, it's KC, or it's Houston. Now, Are they going to play in ASU next year, the college arena that they've been playing in this past year? I think it's possible, and it's possible that they don't. I think there's a whole bunch of upsides to having them play one more year in Arizona. First, it would give the fans a chance to say goodbye. When the Atlanta Thrashers moved in 2011, this is something that the Atlanta Thrashers never did. They were expecting another season in 2012, but they were promptly moved to Winnipeg, so they never really got a chance to say goodbye to their team. If this really is the end of the Arizona Coyotes, it would at least give the hardcore fans a chance to see their team off for one last season. So if they do really want to play one more season in ASU, I don't think it would be too bad. They do have a contract there to play at ASU for the next couple of seasons, but I think if they play one more season there, they then move, they can maybe get out of that contract. So that's would be my opinion. I do think there's definitely upsides to them playing one last season at ASU and having the hardcore Arizona fans see their team off for one last season. Another thing would be it would give the NHL maybe a little bit more time to find a solid relocation option, whether it be KC, Houston, or Salt Lake. I think there's a lot of options out there for possible team to be relocated to. They said they're going to try and find a new home in Arizona. I don't really see much options for them in Arizona besides trying to get the Phoenix Suns owner to renovate the Suns Arena and make it into an NHL hockey rink as well. So that's a little bit of a long shot. So if they're not able to find a home in Arizona, my guess would be that they try and relocate. So it will give them a little bit more time to try and find a solid city to relocate to. If they were to also relocate, spend a year in Arizona, they could also try and rebrand the team so that eventually maybe they try and change the logos and stuff like that, maybe the team colors. Like I said, I think it's possible that they could keep the Coyotes as the logo and keep their colors. But, I mean, if you're going to Houston, you got to bring back the arrows or something else space-related, as they are Houston. So it would be really cool, I think, to see the Houston team have a space-type logo and stuff like that. In KC, you used to have the Scouts, maybe bring back that team, maybe have some sort of a Royals-themed logo, as you do have the KC Chiefs and the KC Royals over in KC as their football and baseball teams, so maybe you rebrand it to be something like that. In Utah, I've seen some people say they like maybe like the Golden Eagles or the Grizzlies or maybe even the Yeti, so I think there's definitely a couple of options, but I think if they're taking a year in Arizona and they're trying to find a new home, I think they're also rebranding the team. As if they relocate, I think they'll try and maybe move away from the Arizona Coyotes and try and bring in a new team altogether. So, in my opinion, I definitely think there might be a shot that the team stays in Arizona. And for all the hardcore Arizona fans out there, I do hope so. I've been hoping for Arizona for so long to have some NHL playoff success. I'm not a real fan of the Coyotes, but I was always hoping that they would be a really good team. Like I said in my previous video, I like teams who don't have much playoff success to try and make it to a cup. That's why I want Florida and Vegas to make the final this year. So I was really hoping Arizona to push. I know they had the magical run in 2012. They were able to win a qualifying round in the bubble. So that's really the closest that they've been to being successful all these seasons. And Arizona's had a ton of problems ever since they really moved from Winnipeg to Phoenix. So, in my opinion, all the Arizona fans would be devastated if they do wind up moving, but given the fact that the only options really right now are to possibly try and move into the Phoenix Suns Arena or try another development project just like they did with Tempe, I don't see much hope in Arizona. So, in my opinion, they're most likely going to relocate. That's just my opinion, but there's definitely a couple of people out there who I think would agree with me. In my opinion, I think it's a three-way race for who gets the team, whether it be KC, Houston, or Utah. Another thing that's interesting to think about would be that the NHL could get decent expansion fees from some of these teams. After they figure out the whole Arizona situation, they may be looking to possibly give it a couple more expansion teams. We talked about this in the past. Given the fact that Ottawa could be sold for about $1 billion, there's a lot of talk that a new expansion team could pay $900 million to $1 billion expansion fee. So maybe they try and save Houston for like expansion team, like Kevin Week said a couple of months ago, where it was Houston and Atlanta being the next expansion teams, and maybe they try and go for a place like Salt Lake City or KC. But I definitely think that this team is going to be relocated. It's just a matter of when, in my opinion. And we've seen how quickly this could go. Well, I do think they should play ASU for one more year. We saw this the last time a team relocated. It was May 20th, 2011, that there were some reports that came out that Winnipeg was just buying the Atlanta Thrashers. Then the NHL tried to throw cold water on this. They said, no, we're not. And why did they do this? It was middle conference final. Both games were in game 4. They didn't want to really upstage the conference final. They waited until the small window between the conference finals and the Stanley Cup final, and that's when they announced the Atlanta Thrashers were moving to the Winnipeg Jets. So while I do think they should remain in ASU for one more year, it would not surprise me in the least if they were to, maybe after the conference finals or maybe after Stanley Cup playoffs, announce that they might wind up even moving as soon as next year to Utah, to Houston, to KC. I think it's possible. We have seen it really transition quickly, but the one thing the Winnipeg Jets did have was an NHL-ready arena, so if they were to relocate now, they would have to be okay with the arena, at least for the next couple of years, and that's something that is going to be interesting to see. At least if they give themselves a year, they're going to have a shot to sort of develop their arena and make sure it works. So, in my opinion, Arizona, the Tempe vote, I think, might be the nail in the coffin for hockey in Arizona. I don't see a way that Arizona can really stay there. I think the only possibilities are either they try and get their team into the Suns arena, or they try and develop another project, or they're going to relocate. And if they do relocate, I think a city like Houston or Utah or KC would be the likely landing spots for a relocation of the Arizona Coyotes. But I think as much as Gary Bettman has tried to keep this team in the state of Arizona, I think it's time to finally move on. I think whether it's Houston, whether it's Salt Lake City or Utah, whether it's KC, this team will be moved in the not too distant future. And I would expect some sort of an announcement in the next couple of weeks. Probably not while the conference finals are going on, maybe even not while the Stanley Cup finals are moving on, but I think there has to be some sort of a plan going forward by the draft at least, because as it sits right now, they have no future in Arizona. They're playing another year in ASU. Not many NHL players would want to go there, and the Arizona Coyotes need to ice a team for next season. So I think they're going to have some sort of a plan. I do think they need to have a plan by the draft to possibly still try and bring in some free agent forwards who they can work with for the next couple of seasons, because they need to get to the cap floor before next year starts. And I don't know how many players are going to want to sign with the Arizona Coyotes if they're playing ASU for one more year and there's no future plan for that team. So, in my opinion, I would expect some sort of an announcement on the Arizona Coyotes' future in maybe in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks before the draft. And it would not surprise me at all if we announce maybe one more season at ASU, sort of a goodbye season for the Arizona Coyotes fans, and then they relocate to Salt Lake City, Houston, or KC. But that's just my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinions down in the comments on what you think Arizona's next steps are going to be. Does Arizona stay in the state of Arizona? Can they find a way to remain in Arizona? Or do they wind up relocating? And if they relocate, which places do you see? I see 3 teams in Utah, Houston, and KC, which would be prime options for possible relocations. I know there's definitely a couple of others, but I don't see moving east. I don't see moving more to the Pacific side. I think cities like OKC and Saskatoon are not as good of options as maybe cities like Houston and Utah are. But definitely, I'd love to hear your opinions down in the comments on, do you think Arizona is going to stay? Or if they relocate, what city do you think they will be relocating to? But that's all I'm going to talk about for today. Remember to like this video and subscribe. I also do a blog, sort of keep up to date with that stuff as well, so I'll link that in the description below. And I can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.